All right, future psychologists, welcome. Let's do a quick rapid-fire review for that AP exam. Today, we're going to sharpen our skills on perception and attention, two topics that are, all about how we actually build our own reality. Okay, let's just dive right in. We're going to tackle a few questions that are designed to feel just like the real AP exam. They're all about testing your ability to apply these big ideas. Ready to see what you know? Let's do it. And remember, doing well on this exam isn't just about memorizing a bunch of terms from a textbook. It's about really understanding how they work in the real world. So this is your chance to practice that exact skill. First up, we've got a classic problem. This one gets right to the heart of a really crucial distinction in psychology, and that's the difference between sensation, which is just your senses getting information, and perception, which is how your brain actively organizes and makes sense of all that information. So think about this carefully. Is the clue that's shaping what you see coming from the image itself, the external world, or is it coming from something that's already going on inside your own mind? Go ahead and take a moment, really think about it, and lock in your answer. And there it is. It's an internal factor. That recent experience of seeing letters created an expectation in your mind. And that internal state, that's what changed how you interpreted the raw data of these lines and curves. You were basically expecting a letter, so you saw a letter. And this is just a perfect illustration of the two main ways we process the world around us. Top-down processing uses what we already know, our experiences, our expectations, to make sense of things. Bottom-up processing is the opposite. It starts totally from scratch, with just the basic sensory details, and builds up to a perception from there. Okay, now we're going to switch gears and look at external factors. I want you to consider how someone's environment, their background, the way they've learned to think, might shape how they decide to group these three simple items. Now, there are two really common answers here, and interestingly, both of them are totally correct, but they reveal two very different ways of thinking about the world. And the answer is culture. What's so fascinating here is that it shows how deeply culture, which is an external factor, can shape our perception. Someone from a typically Western culture might group by category. Oh, a chicken and a cow are both animals. But someone from an Eastern culture might group by relationship. Well, the cow eats the grass. Neither one is wrong. They're just different perceptual habits learned from the world around us. All right, let's move on. We're going to see how this all builds together. Now we're looking at attention. Our brain's incredibly powerful, but also surprisingly limited mental spotlight. Okay, this one is probably one of the most famous experiments in all of psychology. If you've been studying, you've definitely come across this one. It's a total cornerstone concept for understanding the limits of our attention. But first, before you answer, just look at this number, 83%. In a similar and kind of mind-blowing study, this is the percentage of expert radiologists, people whose job is to see things, who were so focused on looking for tiny cancer nodules on lung scans that they completely missed a picture of a gorilla, clear as day, photoshopped onto the scan. And this wasn't about them having bad eyesight, it was all about where their mental spotlight was aimed. So the big idea here is what we call inattentional blindness, and it shows that our attention is a really limited resource. When we focus super hard on one thing, like counting basketball passes, we can become, effectively blind to other things that are right in front of our faces. Our brain just makes a choice and filters everything else out. Okay, finally, let's look at how our minds are basically built to organize all that sensory chaos out there into meaningful whole patterns. And this brings us to the Gestalt psychologists. This quote is their foundational idea. Our perception isn't just adding up the little pieces, a line here, a dot there. Our brain is actively and automatically trying to organize sensory information into a meaningful pattern. A chair is so much more than just a collection of wood and legs. Your brain sees it as a chair. This is a classic reversible image. Your brain has to make a decision. Which part is the main event, the object, and which part is just the background? What do we call that fundamental organizing principle? All right, this is our last question. Take a moment, think it through, and get your answer ready. And the answer is figure ground. This just perfectly shows the perception is an active process. You're not just passively seeing everything at once. Your brain is making a choice. Is the white part the figure, or are the black parts the figure? And you can't see both as the figure at the exact same time. Go ahead, try it. So, after that little pop quiz, what are the most important points you need to have locked in for your exam?
Okay, here's the bottom line. First, remember, perception is an active construction, it's not a passive photograph of the world. Second, it's shaped by both internal factors like your expectations and external factors like your culture. Third, our attention is a finite resource, and that can literally make us blind to things we don't expect. And finally, our brains are just fundamentally wired to find meaningful patterns, which is exactly what the Gestalt principles describe.
It's kind of a humbling question, right? But it really shows how much this stuff applies to our everyday lives. So think about it. You did great work today. Keep putting in those reps for the exam. You've got this.